yourself, your background, just what made you come to this event as well,
Okay.
and what was your objective, to basically come to the event.
Okay. That's very
From your
simple.
objective and where you're at today, do you see that objective being fulfilled as well?
Okay.
And also you can talk about some of the industry, in general, like where do you see there to be a gap? Like a lot of people have said that, like in India as an example, that the law is not there to support some of the initiatives that they're running. So
now, I'm at a slight disadvantage there because obviously I'm not familiar with the
absolutely.
with
So
the
you can
legal
talk
framework here.
talk about your own country as well.
Of course, we
and
can do that.
put context from that perspective. And try
Just
and
going back to whom you're trying to raise awareness amongst, i.e., who's your target audience. There's one group that's strikingly missing. Can you guess what that is?
the patients.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, and this is something that was raised yesterday in our interviews as well, that we have to satisfy our patients. That's the.
Well, I would have thought that's the whole point of
absolutely
doing everything.
But the perspective here is, the market is so large here that these type of
I wouldn't say that. I think the market is quite paternalistic here.
Okay, that might be something good to raise as well. But like we were talking to Ms. Verma as well yesterday, the president of the association, and she was actually saying that the entire IVF and fertility society in India is only 1% of what's required from a provider perspective. And within that 1%, there's a very small percentage.
It doesn't matter whether it's 1% or 0.5%, 0.5%. It's still, I think, losing sight of what all this is about, which is to improve patient care, isn't it? And how do we know what good is unless we ask the customer? If you're designing a hotel, whom would you want feedback from? Just the staff or the clients?
Patients, absolutely.
So why aren't we asking them?
I think if we were to look at the structure of this event, it's more to provide a more international exposure as well on what's happening abroad versus what's happening here in India, because the entire, call it the governance or the structure, is still being developed on
But
the
that's
fly.
only one part of the equation, which is the framework. And you're absolutely right, that is important. But I thought the primary focus of this, I wouldn't call it event, I would call it a scientific congress, was science.
Yeah, true.
And science is quite a wide term, but ultimately as clinicians, what is good science for us is that which enhances the patient's experience.
Absolutely.
And provides the patient with what they're looking for. So unless we involve them, the best science in the world is going to fall flat on its face. Absolutely. Because we won't be satisfying what our customers are looking for. If you flip that around, coming back to your legislative framework, it seems to me that there's a lot of discussion about it by 50% of the stakeholders, i.e. the service providers. You might find that the patients are very helpful allies in joining forces with the clinicians to try and lobby the government into creating an appropriate framework where there's mutual trust and respect. It's only when you achieve that good science can flourish.
I love that thought, and I think, if we even try and implement just 1% or 5% of what you just said, I think we can definitely go a long way. So let's just start this off by, if you can just give us a little bit of introduction about yourself and what brought you to the conference, and what were your expectations before you actually arrived here, and have they been met?
Okay. So my name is Siladitya Bhattacharya. So I work in the University of Aberdeen in the north of Scotland. I've been there for a number of years. I'm an Indian graduate, so I graduated from Calcutta Medical College many years ago, but did my postgraduate and subspecialty training in the UK. I've then done quite an amount of research in reproductive medicine. And I like to use that term because I think, speaking to people here, there's a tendency to be very IVF focused. But of course, fertility care is wider than that, and reproductive medicine goes even wider. So the reason why I came here was because there's obviously an emotional link to the country where I was born, and it's hugely satisfying for me to meet with both colleagues here, senior and junior, as well as trainees. And what I'm hoping in future is to meet with the clients, i.e. the patients here, to try and compare, contrast, influence what happens here, but also to tap into the enormous potential that India has, both in terms of clinical and scientific expertise, to achieve its full potential on the world stage as a major player in research and reproductive medicine. And I think that's the bit that I would particularly like to focus on.
Okay. And from the event perspective, was there anything that you really loved or hated about it?
Well, I love the passion and the sincerity of the people. I like the warmth of the hospitality. I gather that we are very lucky in the last couple of days to have had reasonable air quality in Delhi.
Absolutely.
So those met and surpassed my expectations. What perhaps I was looking for, which I didn't get, was higher quality of science in the free presentations.
Okay.
And the reason for that, I suspect, is training here is very much focused on clinical skill acquisition without questioning the need for some of those skills and indeed the scientific basis underpinning their implementation.
Interesting. So you probably are connecting with a lot of people here while you're at the conference. How do you manage that going forward? Like when you go back to Scotland, is there a specific methodology you use or a specific tool you use, be that internet, email, or WhatsApp? How do you plan to stay connected with some of the people here?
Yeah, remember, this is one country amongst many that I visit. I couldn't possibly, unless I start my personal Facebook page, which I don't have, we do it through my school where I work and university. I couldn't connect on an individual basis with everybody. However, I make it clear that I'm free to interact with people if they choose to make contact with me. And over the years, a lot of individuals and groups have done that, both for clinical training as well as for scientific training, and I'm very happy to support them in any way I can. But the bottom line is I'm not very keen on ad hoc opportunities. If there is work to be done, I would like it to be planned properly, funded adequately through eligible funding bodies, not necessarily through what I would call soft pharma funding. If there's research to be done, I would like it to go through appropriate peer review, funded through bodies like the ICMR in India, the research councils in the UK, and certain global organizations. So I think the bottom line of what I'm trying to say is it's quality, and if people want to come, I'd like to support them through opportunities like Commonwealth Fellowships.
Okay. So if you just mentioned Facebook, like you don't have a Facebook page.
My institution does. So I work through that rather than an individual Facebook page.
Nice. But what would you say if there was a platform out there that literally was exclusive to the medical community and it allowed you to stay in touch with the people that you're actually interacting with, be it at an event, be it at a professional congress?
I am slightly wary of interacting with literally thousands of people globally without a clear purpose, because I have insufficient hours in the day to do justice to that. So I'm being absolutely honest.
Sure.
I chair an international research network in reproductive medicine, and we meet twice a year at a European and American conference, and I interact with people who turn up at these meetings with a commitment to furthering research. While social interaction is absolutely brilliant, I love doing that as much as the next person, I can't do that in the time that I have dedicated to work.
Okay. So say, for example, if we're looking at technology, how do you see technology today and as it was a couple of years back, and where do you see it in the future from a communication perspective? Like, a lot of doctors these days are having issues and challenges with email being spammed and WhatsApp messages being spammed to them. And hospitals or universities internally as well are finding it difficult to communicate within their systems. So
they're two separate things, obviously. There's nothing wrong with technology. It's a great enabler, and I think we all accept that. The things you mention are things that could go wrong if technology is misused. And it's like any other tool that we have. And I'm not going to mention some of them, but you have immediate images that come to mind. It's the person misusing the technology who's the danger, not the technology itself. But I think all of us using technology need to be aware of the potential pitfalls, and I don't know to what extent people do IT safety training here. It's mandatory for us in our institutions. So for what it's worth, we learn how to keep ourselves safe. However, communication is great when it has a purpose. Communication descends into babble when it has no purpose.
I agree to that point as well. So I would definitely like to thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your thoughts, and a safe journey back home, and look forward to probably catching up with you very soon.